Welcome to the GTN show. On this week's show, we have some controversy surrounding the PTO Collins Cup captain's picks, and some of the athletes have voiced their opinion on this.
Yeah, we have another potentially dividing topic. Ironman recently announced an extra 1,200 Kona slots for 2023 for age group women. Now, this could be seen as a step towards equality, or it could be seen as potentially diluting the prestige of the World Championships.
Plus, Super League has announced their format for their races, World Triathlon has announced their new transgender policy, and the women take a clean sweep in the near-death marathon.
Okay, we're going to kick things off by taking a skim through some things that caught our eye online over the last week or so. And I'm pleased to announce that Greg White has just popped up this video. You might remember we've mentioned him a few times over the last few weeks. He was attempting to do an ultramarathon down the River Thames, 125 miles of swimming, not running. Sadly, he got within 40 miles of the finish and his shoulder just became far too much agony, so he had to have some time out. And pleased to say he has now completed his challenge and he's raised a lot of money along the way. So congratulations, Greg, and hopefully your shoulder hasn't got too much long-term damage.
Wow, yeah, well done. That's nuts. Anyway, speaking of nuts, check this out that we saw on the internet. We'll talk about putting your triathlon equipment to good use there. Maybe we should wheel out our treadmill soon.
I would love to give that a go. I don't know what I said about me, but
Yeah,
that looks hilarious.
I'll get the laundry basket.
Yeah, I love it. We spotted this next post by Rachel McBride. Now, they've actually just completed their first mountain bike multi-day race. That was just a week before Boulder 70.3, and then they actually plan to race in the Leadville 100 mountain bike race the week after, which is pretty impressive stuff,
Pretty
but great to see
schedule.
triathletes, mixing up with mountain biking.
And then we had this from Eilish McColgan and World Athletics. She emulated her mom at the Commonwealth Games, which is pretty cool. Her mom won gold in the 1986 and 1990 10,000 meter, and all these years later in 2022, Eilish McColgan emulated her and winning gold in the 10,000 meter. She went on to win silver in the 5,000 meter just last weekend. So yeah, she had a really good weekend and really cool to see that, like mother, like daughter.
Yeah, it's incredible, and she's worked so hard for it. She also got the course record, the championship record at the same time, which the icing on the cake, I think, for that one. Yeah. And then this final post that we spotted, Alistair Brownlee has lost one of his bikes, by the looks of it.
It must be one of his bikes, because he raced this weekend in Swansea on a bike, which was his, definitely. But his other bike that he used at the PGO Canadian Open is still in Belgrade?
Sadly becoming a bit of a common theme, isn't it?
Yeah, he didn't fly via Belgrade, though, on his way home, which is a bit puzzling.
Such a nightmare.
And apparently the airline says they have no idea where it is, but his air tag says that it's in Belgrade Airport. So,
Great.
Yeah. Okay, we spoke about this last week. The Collins Cup is coming up on the 20th of August, and the teams are being finalised, or they are finalised now. So they finally announced the captain's picks, which is those final two wild card slots, final two men and women for each team, that basically the captains can choose anyone or any professional athlete anyway. And they've announced them, and it's been a bit controversial, and mostly controversial, I guess, because Emma Pallant-Brown was left off the list. So Emma Pallant-Brown actually posted this post on her social media saying, "Gutted not to be selected for the Collins Cup, but I've learned in this world you create your own opportunities, you accept your losses and use adversity to keep pushing limits," which is a pretty good attitude to have in this situation. But you can see why she's a little bit jilted by this. Now, they are captain's picks. They can choose whoever they want, and it's not really based on you have to select the next person on the ranking, which Emma Pallant-Brown would be. That would defeat the purpose of having captain's picks, because then you're just doing it on a ranking. But Emma Pallant's got a pretty good argument here. She is ranked number 9th in the world, and Nicholas Berg is ranked 16th, and Holly Lawrence, who were picked ahead of her, is ranked 12th. And Emma Pallant-Brown has won 4 races and come second in another one this year, whereas Nicholas Berg has not won any races, not any major races on the points thing, and nor has Holly Lawrence. Holly Lawrence has got 2 podiums and 70.3s. She was 6th at the PTO Canadian Open, where Nicholas Berg was 10th. Emma Pallant-Brown had a puncture there, so she was out of that one. But she does have some pretty good results this year, and she's in fine form, and she was passed over in favour of these other names. So yeah, it's caused a bit of comments on social media, I guess, but maybe the captains know what they're doing. Maybe they've spoken to all these ladies and they know who who can beat who, because obviously it's actually a team sport.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to know how they actually go about that selection and what else are they looking at other than those results that you've just talked about, because they must be looking at something else, but we're left in the dark as to what that could be. So if you guys have any ideas of what you think is making a strong team, and obviously there's a bit of a team spirit as well and making sure everyone gets on, but it is only a 2-day event and it isn't a team sport. We're still each individually racing. So it's not like you need to have everybody on the same pitch.
What you really need is someone in form. So it's interesting. We'll see whether they made the wrong decision. Obviously, Team Europe is still ridiculously strong.
I think.
So it might not make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think Emma will be able to probably stand at the end of it and say, well, you should, if you picked me, Europe would have
because
won.
Of me. Exactly. Anyway, let's run through who those captains have picked for all of those teams. Starting with the ladies. Team Europe, as we said, the captains' picks are Holly Lawrence and Nicola Spirig. On Team US, it is Sophie Watts and Sarah True. And on Team International, it is Flora Duffy and Victoria Lopez. Now, obviously, Flora Duffy.
I mean, that's a pretty big kudos for Team International, isn't it?
Exactly,
I mean, they must just, the others who are actually the higher ranked athletes must be like, yes, come on, Flora, want you in my team, who wouldn't?
Absolutely. So that's a pretty strong team all around on all those women's teams.
Yeah, and then for the men, we've got Daniel Bakkegaard and Sam Laidlow for Team Europe. There's an interesting sketch actually, or a bit of a rap on the PTO Instagram you might want to check out, just sort of making some comments about how strong Europe are going to be.
With a bit of a banter starting
with the addition of those two athletes, they will be up against US's team picks with Ben Canute and Jason West that we covered last week. And then we've also got some exciting international captains picks, the Hayden Wild and Aaron Royal. And see, Hayden Wild has been in fine form. He actually posted something on the PTO site recently just saying he's not really raced this distance and he's super excited to go and smash it. I mean, we know he's in great form for world triathlon racing, but it'll be interesting to see how he is on his TT bike.
Yeah, he's definitely dipping his toes in a lot of distances because he's obviously doing the World Triathlon Series at the moment. Then he's doing this, and then he's coming back in September, obviously, for the Super League, which is super short, and we get to more of that in a minute because they've announced some new formats. One more thing that we noticed about the PTO and they're now the US Open, they've announced the courses for this, and that's also caused some discussion on social media because it looks like the course for the bike over 80 Ks and 3 laps has got 9 90-degree turns and 5 U-turns in each lap for 80 Ks for 3 laps, which is a lot of turns. And maybe it's going to really favor those people who are really good bike handlers, but it's not really the kind of course where you put your head down and you just time trial. And a lot of guys have commented that if this is the same course, obviously we know this is the course for the age groupers, we're not 100% sure this is the course they're going to use for the pros because they've announced that it's definitely the age group course, and that's what it's on the website as, but they may use a different course for the pros. Some of the comments on social media were pretty funny. One of them was, there's no ways Lionel's getting around all those corners. Yeah,
well, I think if an age grouper, knowing that that's definitely their course, can be out there practicing their skills, or I would be if I was them. But yeah, interesting to see. Well, moving on, like we mentioned earlier, Ironman have just announced that the 2-day format that they are trialling in Kona this year is definitely going to happen again next year. Now, originally they said they weren't going to make a decision until they trialled it this year because it's the first time ever in Kona's history that they've had the men and the women on separate days. So this year it's going to be on the Thursday and then the Saturday. But they've gone ahead and made this decision along with some other changes which are quite significant.
Yeah, so a quick bit of background on this. Kona is back this year in October for the first time in over 3 years. Obviously it was in St. George in May, because they couldn't have it in Kona for 2 years because of the pandemic. But they've split it into 2 race days. And the reason for this, they said, was because there were too many women and men, obviously, with all the rolled over slots for the last 2 years, they couldn't have it. And so what they've done is the women on Thursday, the men on Saturday, although there's one or two age groups in the men also on Thursday just to even out the numbers because they're so uneven. And then they've announced, as Heather says, in 2023, they're doing that again. Obviously, they haven't even tried it yet, but that's what they've announced. Although this time, it will be solely the women on Thursday and solely the men on Saturday. They've already announced that. So how are they doing this? Well, how are they going to have enough women to fill that field? They're going to add 1,260 only for women slots at different races around the world.
Well, I find it really interesting that Ironman have made this announcement so soon because I think everyone's quite concerned or intrigued to see how the Big Island and Kona itself is going to cope this year as it is. And that's, with a massive increase, but not the sort of numbers that we're talking about here. And just the format of that. But yes, there's more slots to qualify, but will people find accommodation? Will they be able to afford it? There's all these questions around it. But then on the plus side, I do think it's great that women can race on their own day. And I've personally competed at 70.3 Worlds when it was a women's only race, and it was great for the pros getting the coverage, but also as an athlete, just, I don't know, there's something a little bit kind of less intimidating without having guys kind of, especially on the bike, flying past you. So there are some positives around it, but I think there's quite a few questions too. Yeah, there's definitely some issues, and other than the cost, and obviously Kona is a pretty small town, so it might be really full. There's also the issue that the women's race is now going to happen on a Thursday, and the men's is going to happen on a Saturday. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot less demand for live sport on a Thursday than there is on a Saturday for people to sit and watch. So is the women's race going to get a lot less exposure because of that? And then, of course, there's the more fragile topic of, is giving that many more slots away to the women kind of diluting the quality and the prestige of going to Kona? There's so many questions with that. And I was really hoping that for 2023, they might switch the men and the women around, because this year it's Thursday, Saturday, and there was like, well, you can't criticise it, it's the first year. But no, it isn't. And I mean, obviously, when it's 70.3 Worlds, you have the men and women both racing on the weekend, because you can get the athletes checking in because the race is finished in time. So that's the problem with Ironman, that you have to have a day in between. So yeah, there's no way around that in a sense. But when it comes to this sort of, what does it mean to go to Kona? And I've seen a few comments, people saying, well, up until 2019, it was this big kudos. And now is it going to have that same kind of massive thing that, wow, I've got there. I've managed to work hard enough to actually make it to the start line in Kona. And I'm open to criticism on this one. So if you are a woman out there and you've just missed out on this, to you, is that amazing? Then let us know. But equally, if you're someone who's been, or someone who's still trying to qualify, do you now feel slightly like, oh, well, I could just rock up to one of these races and qualify probably relatively easily? Yeah. Now, on the surface, looking at it and going 50% men, 50% women, the same number of Kona slots for each makes a lot of sense, and it's fair. But the reality is that all Ironmans across the world have an average of around 20% female participants. So giving the exact same number of Kona slots for men and women when there's only 20% the number of participants means that, as Heather says, it's going to be that much easier. In fact, it's going to be incredibly easy at some of these races, which Heather has a list of now, to qualify as a woman to go to Kona, and that dilutes maybe the quality of it. It means even less people might be watching on race day, on the Thursday, because they're going to go, well, this is not the elitist of the elite. And it all just kind of snowballs into something that's maybe not as positive as it looks on the surface. Yeah, I'm really struggling with it, because I'm all for like anything that encourages women to do sport is brilliant, but I don't know if this is doing it. Anyway, so if you are one of these people who was like, yes, tell me about these races, there's an extra 100 slots for the following: for Ironman Kalmar, Chattanooga, Arizona, Coeur d'Alene, Lake Placid, Mont Tremblant, and Copenhagen. That's on top of the 55 slots those races have already. So I think most of those end up with 155 slots spread across, depending on which age groups are the biggest and the strongest. So yeah, a huge amount of opportunities to qualify for Kona. And I am sitting here saying, I've been there, I've done it. So I might not be looking at this from a completely neutral angle. I'd love to know, what you guys think this is doing for women's sport. But also, remember, it is a world championships. It's not a mass participation event. So are you going to go, Heather? You're going to choose one of those and go? Do you know what? I had in the back of my mind this slight bucket list of trying to see if I could get to Kona again in the future. And that's weirdly now just made me lose that sort of desire. Opposite. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. We'll see. Moving on, and Super League have announced their change of the formats in some of their races. So they've announced what the format's going to be in each of them, and a few little tweaks to it. It's going to be some exciting racing in September and October. In London, on September 4th, it'll be the triple mix. In Munich, on September 11th, it'll be the enduro, which is basically 3 triathlons in a row, one after the other. In Malibu, it'll be the eliminator, which is again 3 triathlons, but at the end of each one, they have a little break and 3 people are eliminated. And then in Toulouse in France, it'll be the triple mix again, which is where they do 3 triathlons and they change the order of each of them. A lot of 3 triathlons going on. And then the grand final on the October 29th, and that will be an enduro. Again, 3 triathlons back to back to back.
So yeah, exciting racing coming up. They haven't announced, I can't find a press release anywhere on what the prize purse is going to be, but last year it was a whopping 1.25 million. So some big racing for the short course athletes coming up in September.
Especially being a non-Olympic year, I reckon some of them will be targeting that, won't they? Well, moving on, but sticking with short course racing, World Triathlon have just announced the updated policy for their transgender policy. Now, this is interesting because we only recently talked about British Triathlon announcing their policy, and USA Triathlon have also, but these are all different.
Yeah, it's very interesting because World Triathlon's gone up now and said that if you've competed as a male in the last 4 years, you cannot compete in the female category. So even if you're making that shift or that change. Also, you have to prove that you've had low enough testosterone, below 2.5 nanomoles per milliliter of testosterone for more than 2 years. You have to prove that you've had that low for more than 2 years before you can compete in the female category. But this is very different to British triathlons because they've said they have female category, and anyone who is a male or was born a male or went through any male puberty at any point, regardless of their testosterone level, has to compete in the open category, which reads male. It is the male category and is open to everyone else. And then USA Triathlon has gone another direction because they just had their age group nationals this last weekend, and they had their own individual category for non-binary athletes. So we've got 3 completely different policies here, all under World Triathlon, USA Triathlon, British Triathlon, World Triathlon, and they're all different. So we wait to see where this all lands.
I mean, I did think it was interesting that British Triathlon were announcing these massive changes, which were under a lot of scrutiny before and knowing that World Triathlon were coming up with something and were under the review process. So I'm looking forward to seeing if British Triathlon actually to change anything or react with that, because at the end of the day, they are feeding athletes up through to then eventually, hopefully, race under the World Triathlon rules. So I'm not sure where that transition works.
They're all supposed to fall under the same umbrella, and I guess they're all trying to figure it out. But it seems like World Triathlon's the one who makes the end decision, and that's where they're all going to have to align with.
Yeah, well, moving on to this next point, which actually raises any problem if you had an open competition, because the women won the event overall. This was the near-death marathon, and it was won overall by a woman, and she was then joined on the podium by 2 other women. So it was Priscilla Forgy, who won in a time of 4 hours, 6 minutes. Jenny Quilty was 2nd overall. Kim Cameron 3rd overall, but the winner of the men's race, who actually finished 4th, was Jeremy Tillman.
Well done, Jeremy. And finally, we have this. A police officer from Nottinghamshire Police is doing a 56-hour triathlon. That's 12 hours of swimming, then 12 hours of cycling, and then 12 hours of running. He's doing this to raise money for an NHS trust who helped save his daughter's life. She was born really early and had to have CPR for many hours, and then was in neonatal intensive care unit, and basically they saved his life. So to raise money for them, he's doing this massive triathlon. Essentially going to swim 18 miles in a university pool over 12 hours, and then he's going to cycle 160 miles over 12 hours on a lap course, and then he's going to run 84 kilometers in the next 12 hours to do 36-hour triathlon. It's a long time to be doing triathlon for. I mean, he's not going particularly fast, and I think people will look at that and go, well, you could do a lot quicker than that, mate. But just to be moving for 36 hours is pretty impressive, and of course, he's doing it for a good cause to raise money. So if you can support him, get out there and support him. Okay, time for race news, and we had a lot of racing this past weekend, so we're going to run through it as quickly as we can. Starting with Ironman 70.3 Boulder. Matthew Sharp took the win there with Justin Metzler in 2nd and Ben Hoffman in 3rd. That's like the annual Boulder World Championships. In the women's race, Rachel McBride took the win with Leslie Smith in 2nd and Hannah Wells in 3rd. And news from that race is that the Boulder World Championships will be moving to June next year instead of the end of the summer. So next year, the 70.3 will be a lot earlier and maybe see some different players in it.
Well, look forward to seeing that one. We had a race local to us. It was Ironman 70.3 Swansea, and it was led out by Alistair Brownlee. I mean, a pretty big name to be racing down in Wales, so everyone's rather excited to see him absolutely smash it. He took the win ahead of Antonio Benito Lopez, 2nd, and it was Tom Bishop, also from Great Britain, 3rd, and actually Maurice Clavel in 4th. The women's race was a very strong performance by Kat Matthews, who said she was just going there to sort of enjoy the day out. I think she loved the home crowd. She was joined on the podium by fellow Brits Lydia Dant in 2nd and Ruth Arstle in 3rd.
Yeah, winning's always fun, isn't it, with Kat? Yeah. Also, Alistair said straight after that race that he is now planning to do Ironman Kalmar in Sweden next weekend. literally the last weekend that you can qualify for Ironman World Champs Kona this year. So he's hoping to get his slot and be ready for Kona in October, which is interesting. So we hold thumbs for him because it'd be good to see him in Kona racing this year if we can. Moving on, Ironman 70.3 Gdynia in Poland, and Sam Long was out for a vengeance after he took the wrong gears to help the best, and he got it. He won quite comfortably. Richard Varga in second, Fabian Rutter in third. On the women's side, Imogen Simmons from Switzerland was first, Sarah Svensk from Sweden in second, and Alexandra Jedrzejewska from Poland in third. Sorry if I massacred that name.
We also had Norseman, the X-Tri Iron Distance race, which you'll probably remember Mark has competed in and did incredibly well. Well, the results were for the women's race, Ailey Price from Great Britain. Now, I have to give a big shout out to Ailey because I used to compete in modern pentathlon with her. Yeah, and I didn't even know that she did triathlon now, let alone was doing Norseman, and went on and won it. I mean, she's an incredible runner and a very tough athlete from Scotland, which always helps when it comes to the cold extreme races. So well done, Ailey, on that one. Second place went to Kaja Bergvitz Larsen from Norway and Hannah Seich of Great Britain in third.
On the men's side, we had a new record, which is saying something because it's a tough race, that one. 9 hours, 23 minutes and 28 seconds for that iron distance is particularly fast by John Brevold from Norway. Christian Grew in second and Alan Hovda, who's won it before, in third.
We also had the Attilo Swim Run World Series, this time in Gothenburg. And I noticed this one more because of the conditions. So they actually had to change the course because it was so wavy. And this just brings back some sort of memories from a race I did a few weeks ago when the swim ended up being cancelled for the second part because it became a little bit too rough. Yeah, that's a bit of a long story. But the winners of the overall race were Max Anderson and Hugo Tormento. We had Team Stena Recycling, Hannah Skarbat and Eureka Eriksson winning the women's event. And then the mixed team was Team Desi and Alexander Bergen and Desiree Anderson.
And then one more honourable mention in our race news, although it wasn't actually a pro event, but Ironman Alaska happened for the first time. Somewhat similar to Norseman in that the water was 13 degrees and the air was 10 degrees and it was pouring with rain. Not surprising for Alaska. Interesting, that race, that they're going to have it in Alaska because, I mean, it's not really the place that you do triathlon.
Definitely you.
Generally.
We would never find you doing triathlon there, would we?
There's not much danger of you finding me there. No, maybe they'll have a pro race there in the future. Anyway, they did have it. The swim was shortened because the water was so cold. But Alex Wetman took out the win there on the men's and Liz Cullen took out the women's win.
Alrighty, it's time to take a look at your photos, and remember you can send them in to us using the GTN uploader, which is on screen now and also in the description below. We've got this lovely picture to start us off that's been sent in by Marco, and it's from a triathlon in Setúbal, Portugal, and he says, crossing the line of the half distance race with his baby boy who's just 12 days old.
Wow. Congratulations on the birth of your baby boy, and well done for finishing triathlon just 12 days later. Very impressive. Next one, this is from Nurse outside of Camp Pendleton, close to Oceanside in California. And they say it's going to average 34 degrees all week. So I visited my folks this weekend, cleaned and treated their pool and fixed up their old pool tether. The heater still doesn't work, but the jets are still nice off the trail run in the heat. Maybe it's not as nice as a beach or a 50-metre pool, but it's open 24/7. There's air conditioning inside, and the food is free. Your parents' house is always free, isn't it? This baby tryhard is going on a long journey. Thanks, GTN, for plotting the course. No problem.
Yeah, lovely to see the insight of your training there. And we love videos, so if that one inspires you, do share your own. This next one comes with the title, Summer is for Big Days in the Saddle. I would like to say I agree, but I haven't ridden my bike for a while. But anyway, this is about Louisa, who has sent this in. She's on her Scott Addict, and it is the Lassettes du Mont Vernier and Col de Madeleine in the Alps in France. She says, currently on holiday. These pictures are from one of many rides I did with my dad recently up the Lassettes du Mont Vernier, which the Tour de France climbed this year, and the Col de Madeleine, which also was previously featured on the Tour de France. Wow, so a lot of climbing then. Not only are the climbs very tough, the heat was extreme, 38 to 39 degrees, but the rides and views were certainly worth it. Well, apparently Mont Blanc is in the background of one of those pictures. I'm very fortunate to have a dad who wants to do all this with me, and I hope everyone can enjoy riding as much as we did. Oh, she stands on a high, doesn't she, from that?
Yeah, very cool. I've ridden up the Col de Madeleine, and it is quite the climb.
Yeah, it looks stunning.
Well done. This we have from Deborah, who sends in a special message from her son Aidan. She says, please give my 8-year-old Aidan a shout out. This year, he set himself a goal of riding the NC 500 virtually to raise money for the Scottish Huntington's Association. even when he had COVID, he still cycled on my turbo trainer. His longest cycle was 30 miles when he cycled the back roads from Thurso to Wick. He only has 39 miles to go and has raised over 1,000 pounds. And the link to help him is down below his adventure. You can follow him on Facebook. Well done, Aidan. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, that's
really
amazing.
Cool.
Well, hopefully you do reach your target. If you guys want to send anything in, you know what to do.
And now it's time for the Caption competition. And last week we had this image of Taylor Reid doing something with his arms. Max Ryder said, "Didn't I read this event included a bodybuilding portion?" I see what you did there.
Nice. This next one from Fergal Trace, I love, but there's a slight issue because it has to be sung and I cannot sing and I cannot do it. I cannot do it to you guys. I really can't. And I love this song as well.
Favorite song
but
you can sing.
It's not my favorite, but I do love this song and I will not love it. And you guys will never be able to listen to the song again if I sung it. But anyway, he says, well, you can read it. I can't even read it because it have to be sung and I cannot sing it. I'm having a real issue with this. But
I'm going to have a meltdown, so I better do it.
Fergal, I like
Ready or not, here I come. You can't hide. Gonna find you. Overtake
oh, you were too short and find.
Slowly. Oh, now she's criticising my singing. Well, Fergal Trace, thanks for it. He actually gave us another one because he said,
oh, yeah.
Good publicity for my newest sponsors, Zip.
Oh, well done, Fergal. You were on it. I didn't even notice.
Clever.
We put two of yours in there. Well, the winner this week, though, is Matthew Fath of the GTN water bottle with, I swear I put that gel somewhere around here. Nice one, Matthew. Do get in touch with us and we will get that sent out to you.
And this week we have this image of Mark Green finishing Ironman Alaska. We're not sure whether he was doing this for charity or something else, but it looks like he was wearing a bear suit. I mean, there are bears on the course in Ironman Alaska, so maybe he was just intimidating them.
And you were saying how cold it was.
Yeah, maybe he's just staying warm.
Win-win.
Yeah, wearing a bear onesie. Anyway, I went with I barely made it.
Barely made it.
I'm sure you can do better than that. So leave your captions down below and you can get a water bottle next week. That's it for this week's show. Coming up on the show this weekend, we have a video on racing in the heat, which is quite topical here in the UK because we've got another heat wave incoming.
Yeah.
And we also have a video on how to transition if you're struggling with your transitions.
Yeah, well, if you guys haven't yet been on the GTN shop or recently, we've got some new additions on there. So I would suggest going to check that out. Remember, if you have enjoyed the show today, give us a like, hit the globe and subscribe. And if you want a video to watch now, we've got the ideal Ironman training week for you.